After understanding the common types of senses, we turn our attention to some basic concepts which are highly important to sensory physiology. The first concept is the steps involved in sensation. There are 4 major steps involved in sensation. The first one is stimulation. It is imperative to note that all these 4 steps are required to generate a sensation successfully. You take either one of these steps out and you no longer have a sensation. So the first step is stimulation, which basically means that you have to have a stimulus, and it must be strong enough to generate an action potential. Also, usually certain kinds of sensors are sensitive to certain kind of stimuli. The second process is transduction. What transduction basically means is that once the action potential is generated, it causes depolarization. And that depolarization depends on the fact whether the graded potential generated by the stimuli was strong enough to surpass the threshold barrier. The third important step in sensation is conduction. And what that basically means is that once the action potential is generated, it must be carried through the afferent neurons to either the spinal cord or the higher brain centers. And in terms of physiological terminology, the neurons involved in conduction can be divided into 3 main categories. We call them first order, second order, and third order neurons. The first order neurons are involved from the stimulation site directly to the CNS, while the second order neurons are involved in conducting impulses from the CNS to, upon entry to the CNS, to thalamus. The third order is involved in conducting impulses from the thalamus to the perception site, the higher brain centers that are involved in interpreting the stimuli. Now these are the 4 actually, these are the 3 processes. The fourth one is your the perception itself. Perception, which is the final and the most important part in the process of sensation. Basically, once the stimuli is detected by the receptors and conducted via the appropriate neurons and transduced, they must be perceived by the higher brain centers and must be evaluated and responded accordingly. Before I end the theoretical part of this video, I would like to turn your attention to a very important law that governs the sensory physiology. It is known as the law of specific nerve energies. What this law basically states is that the receptors that are present in our body respond to specific kind of stimuli, or in terms of medical terminology, modalities. Modalities refer to specific stimuli or energies. And that's where the word energies comes into existence. Specific stimuli or energies are known as modalities. So our bodies are designed by nature to respond to a certain kind of stimuli or energy. And that's what basically the law entails. The stimulus that stimulates the receptor optimally is known as adequate stimulus. Adequate stimulus. Although this law is highly simple, but is very important in understanding the complex pathways in the sensory physiological processes. Now that we have learned the theoretical side of sensory physiology, I would like to turn your attention to the practical side and learn about the pathophysiologies related to sensory system and the complications arising from it. We will have direct interaction with a physician, and we will learn about the diagnosis and the treatment of the diseases related to the sensory system.